Let's now talk live to British investigative journalist Tony Gosling. Hi, Tony. Thank you for joining us in the program tonight.
Hi there.
Can you just tell us what your thoughts are into this latest UK report and the reaction on it so far in the Litvinenko case?
Well, first of all, Sir Robert Owen, it seems, hasn't had any internet access for the year of his inquiry, because anybody that spends 5-10 minutes going online can find all sorts of other evidence which contradicts what he's saying. And it's quite amazing that Theresa May should come out with a statement such as this is a blatant breach of international law, when he's quite clearly said, used the word probably to link this to Vladimir Putin. There's also the fact that Andrei Lugovoy, he's accusing, actually passed a lie detector test over in Russia. Lots and lots of evidence which is not here. This is really just one side of the case which has been put by Sir Robert Owen. Also very strange that a public inquiry should have been instituted into this. It's almost like the reverse of what happened with the 7/7 London bombings. There should have been a public inquiry into that. There wasn't. There was an inquest. With this, we've had a public inquiry. Well, actually, there should have been an open inquest with some of this secret information, probably with some help from the MPs that oversee the security services, disclosed to the public, because Litvinenko was in the pay, the BBC have reported, of MI6. So this is a highly charged case. And it looks to me as if Sir Robert Owen has just put one side, the government point of view, because, of course, the government never wants to find itself guilty.
Tony, you were just mentioning on the Britain government's reaction to this. Let's listen to this clip on exactly what they said.
The conclusion that the murder was authorized at the highest levels of the Russian state is extremely disturbing. It is not the way for any state, let alone a permanent member of the UN Security Council, to behave.
So, Tony, it's some strong words there. Why this choice of language, in your opinion? The report says only that high-ranking Russian officials possibly had motives.
Well, there certainly were motives getting rid of Litvinenko, that's quite sure. And I think one of the most important things is to go to the immediate family to get reports from them. But Sir Robert Owen doesn't seem to have done that with Litvinenko's father, Walter, who actually doesn't agree with the daughter, Galina, who says that the British were that Putin was involved in this. The absolute nub of this issue is the research that Litvinenko had been doing into the Moscow Ryazan bombings of 1999, which happened really helped spark the Chechen War, a terrorist attack that happened in Russia in 1999. The book he wrote, Blowing Up Russia, most of your listeners won't have time to have read it, but I did, and you'll find in there that there is evidence that actually points to Putin being behind those attacks, but also to Boris Berezovsky, who was removed as a criminal from Russia by Putin, and he found his home in London. Now, when Berezovsky was in London, he was being funded by two people we know about. One was the Duke of Kent, most importantly giving money to Berezovsky, and probably the security services too. So what Litvinenko was saying effectively was that possibly Berezovsky was the main instigator of these attacks in Russia, not Putin. So I would advise people that want to look deeper into this to look at this book, Blowing Up Russia, but also to bear in mind that Berezovsky may have been the main instigator of those terrorist attacks. Certainly his death, Berezovsky, in 2013 here in London, was very suspicious, and it may have really put Berezovsky out of the way, because he had some very important evidence that he could possibly have given that would have made this inquest and this public inquiry much more interesting, where many secrets would have come out. But look, the solution here, it's important to understand, we've had a series of these sorts of terror attacks, poisoning, what looked like possible assassinations. We had the Paris back in 2015, the Boston bombings, 7/7 London bombings, 9/11 attacks in 2011, and we really must have some kind of independent journalistic institute which gives us the truth. We've got the Royal Institute for International Affairs here in London. We've got the Royal United Services Institute that always gives the establishment point of view on the BBC and other services. But what we really need is a good journalistic institute of some sort here in the West. I mean, mean, I would propose doing something in Bristol if people are interested. Let me know that looks into this, that gives international reports which have got an independence from government, because I'm afraid Sir Robert Owen's report is not. I mean, Bilveer Singh, he's a professor of political science at Singapore University, has proposed this many times, and we've got to have, I think, independent commentary for the public through the media about all these kinds of attacks. And this report by Sir Robert Owen is nothing like that. It's just afraid to point the finger at possible British government and MI6 involvement in poor Litvinenko's death. And I just underline again, please do have a look at his book and consider that possibly Boris Berezovsky, the Russian oligarch that Putin actually kicked out of Russia, was one of the instigators of these terror attacks in '99.
Now, Tony, I want to get your thoughts on something else, because the press secretary of the Russian Foreign Ministry just hosted a press conference now, and they described this public investigation of Litvinenko as shadow theater, that is not transparent, and that is not secretive. Can you tell us a little bit more on how much evidence remains secret?
I think a tremendous amount, and all of the dealings between the British taxpayer-funded MI6 and the Duke of Kent, who's the Queen's cousin, financing Litvinenko's stay in London. Also, probably the trail of polonium. Now, I don't know if any professional assassin would leave a trail of polonium, which supposedly led back to Alexander Litvinenko and the Russians. I mean, if you were a professional killer using polonium, I don't imagine you would leave a trail. I certainly wouldn't. Then there's also the other killings around the world that have been linked to polonium. If you remember, way back in 2004, when Yasser Arafat died, it was believed that he died a natural death. Afterwards, his wife and others have actually exhumed his body, because they believed, and there is some evidence, that polonium was also used to kill Yasser Arafat. So that also links back possibly to the Israeli secret services and Western secret services being behind the use of polonium to poison people. So none of this has been looked at by Sir Robert Owen. And of course, what we've got here is a British establishment judicial cover-up and a spin point of view, where at least Sir Robert Owen has only said it's probably down to leads to Putin. But Theresa May and the government have shown that this has become highly politicised here in Britain by actually spinning what Sir Robert Owen said and calling for saying this is a blatant breach of international law. I also noticed that Sir Paddy Ashdown was calling for travel bans. Now, you've got to have some solid evidence before you do that kind of thing. And it seems to me to be part of a pattern which is happening here in London, in Britain, where everything seems to be blamed at the door of Vladimir Putin, and the British government have become absolutely useless at actually pointing the finger sometimes at themselves and saying, well, maybe there was a hand here, and maybe our secret services are running out of control and are totally unaccountable. That seems to be the message here.
So, Tony, with so much classified information involved in this public probe of the Litvinenko case, you know, so many secret documents and witnesses, do you think we'll ever have a clearer picture of really what happened?
Well, yes, I mean, certainly if you go online, you can find a lot of good interrogation of the facts here. Also, it's the Berezovsky connection, I think, is very important for people to understand, to look at the links between Litvinenko and Berezovsky and Putin and Berezovsky, and the very strange death of Boris Berezovsky here in London. You know, those things are not able to be included in any of this discussion today. And I would imagine if Berezovsky was still alive, he would be all around the media giving his point of view. And possibly he might have even been in the dock himself as somebody who was possibly guilty. I mean, he was certainly seemed a very paranoid man. He seemed to want to have armed guards with him all the time. So it looked to me as if he'd done something wrong. So that side of things, I think, it is possible to get to the bottom of this, I think, by proper interrogation. This is why I propose this idea of having a proper, independent, freelance journalist-run terror institute, possibly in the west of England, but it doesn't really matter where it is, so long as the public has got access to good, quick interrogation of the facts. And we're not allowed to have British public money millions probably spent on this inquiry for a year, which just simply exonerates the British Secret Services and the British government's involvement in this tragic, horrible death. And the most important thing, I think, is to look at who may have been behind this, and also who may have really been behind these Ryazan Moscow bombings back in 1999, which is really the root of why Alexander Litvinenko became such a political hot potato, and possibly the man who knew too much.
Well, thank you, Tony, for sharing your thoughts with us today on the program. Thank you. That was Tony Gosling, investigative journalist. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.